this is a fruit whose the plant and the seeds of whose which we had planted around 2.5 years back. A lot of efforts have actually gone in from different stakeholder groups, different ecosystem players to actually make this day happen. So thanks a lot everyone for being here. On behalf of NRDC India, NRDC, CW, Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and MNRE, a warm welcome to everyone to be part of this important moment. Can I have please a big round of applause for your own self and also for this moment? Driving energy transition, workforce, skills, gender in India's renewable energy sectors. So all these components that we'll be talking about here today, the workforce, employment, skills, gender, have been and will continue to be a very important component and part of the India's energy transition. Jobs, workforce, employment, career, these words remained a very intrinsic part of our life as soon as we complete our education. So I think it's kind of bringing the circle back to this discussion again, ki kitna important hai. And this reminds me of a couple of lines which I'd like to share with you all, is that सफ़र को मायने मंजिल नहीं देती, सफ़र को मायने मंजिल नहीं देती, बल्कि वो लोग देते हैं जो साथ चलते हैं. So it's ultimately at the end of the day, people. People are at the center of anything that we do in this world or in our society, household, communities. So that's what we are going to talk about here today across the next few hours. So a very warm welcome to all the distinguished speakers, officers from MNRE, distinguished leaders from the renewable energy ecosystem in India to be part of this important moment. Today's report launch also marks an important milestone in understanding the employment potential of the RE sector and the pathways that is needed to strengthen workforce participation, skilling and gender participation in India's workforce. So I'll just take a pause there, and without further ado, a very warm welcome to all of you again. To formally welcome you all, I would like to invite Deepa Singh Bagai, Country Head, NRDC India, on the dais, please. And Deepa Singh Bagai, Deepa ma'am has been a driving force for a lot of work in India. And Deepa, a very warm welcome to on the dais. And I'll leave you here.
Thank you, Rana. It is my immense privilege and honor to be here today and doing what Rana has told me to do. But I would have done it anyway because this is such an important moment where we have the opportunity to welcome and express gratitude for the juncture at which we are. I'm particularly grateful that Secretary Mr. Sarangi and Additional Secretary Mayank and Mini Ma'am, as we all call her, after a lot of iterations of this report, she's familiar to everyone as Mini Ma'am, Jethani ji, other officials, Suman has just walked in. Wonderful to be here with all of you, and wonderful to have Arunaba here, and the teams from CEW and NRDC. But even more important, and I think that's the crux of this, is to have this wonderful group of people here who are the driving force of this revolution that has happened in the country. And whatever may be debatable about progress in any field, there is one beacon that stands out, and that is India's renewable energy story. There is absolutely no doubt that this is one of the enduring and impressive successes that our country has been able to make in a very short span of time. Who would have imagined? I mean, I've been in the government for many years. I've then worked with international organizations. If 15 years back, I was told that we'll be seeing this day and this success in India's renewable energy story, I would have said, you know, we are talking a pipe dream. So congratulations to everyone for having been part of making that pipe dream possible. So famously, Pearl S. Buck had once said that blessed are those who dream dreams, but even more blessed are those who are able to put the foundations under those dreams to make them into real living structures. So all of us, I think, are very blessed. I particularly feel very blessed because when I had started my career, all we knew about solar energy was, or renewable energy actually, was big boxes with a big glass on top of them, and to be told that if you put a little bit of rice in a bowl inside and see, then the miracle of solar energy will actually cook it. And we had tried to do that as part, as a young SDM in a very remote district in India, trying somehow to make sure that those big boxes could even be transported, because they used to not even be able to fit into a Jeep, and see where we are now. So a moment to pause, to reflect, but also to congratulate ourselves on where we are. So a very warm welcome with that thought that this is a moment to celebrate also, as much as it is to question, to criticize, to think ahead, but also definitely to celebrate. So let's start with the premise that we've done a great job, but there's a lot more to be done. And it's in that context that we are talking now. The people we have here, there are policymakers, industry leaders, civil society, researchers, skilling institutions. This whole ecosystem in some ways is represented here. So this is a group that can actually make a difference. Let's be conscious of that, and let's be united in that common purpose, because what has set this sector apart, I think, and this ministry apart, to be honest, because now coming back after working in many international organizations and having worked in the government before, the openness that this ministry has to be able to involve everyone in taking this work forward, I think that's also one of the secrets of success in this ministry. The openness to new ideas, to new partners, to respect for other opinions and ideas, which has brought us here. So it's in that spirit that this report was also created, because it is not usual for a ministry to be so encouraging of a work which started, Arunabha was reminding us earlier, this work actually started more than a decade ago as an exercise which NRDC and CEW were doing together in terms of predictability through a model. It was a modeling exercise. And as we were talking earlier, as you were mentioning, that there is a time when a top-down approach works, when the sector is so small that you can actually interact with people and get information. And there is a time, which is now, where that whole spectrum has changed dramatically. And therefore, it is time that we relook at this. And that's exactly what we did with this report, that after 10 years of looking at it as a modeling exercise and putting numbers into that equation, we actually went out and tried to get real first-hand data from stakeholders. A first time that this has happened with this report. For that, absolute and full credit to Mr. Sarangi sitting here, to Secretary MNRE, because the first time we discussed this report, there were many answers in it, but many, many good questions. And good questions are what actually leads to better reflection and better answers. We are grateful for all those questions for that. We had come in at that time saying, oh, we need to get a date to release this report. It has taken us a year and more since that day, when we were just asking for that date. And it was really like, the report is ready, let us release it. But the questions it emanated, that discussion emanated, and the serious reflection of all stakeholders within the ministry, and as a result of that, with the bigger stakeholder group, is what has enriched this report and what has given it a dimension which just wasn't there when we were ready to release it, to be honest. And so when Rana said that this is a very important moment, it is indeed an important moment, because when we thought we are going to release the report, we are releasing it almost a year and a half after that, but it's a completely different report that we are launching. So it's something to be very, very proud of. And the important thing is that we have been able to recognize that behind every solar module that is manufactured, behind every wind turbine that is installed, behind every rooftop that is commissioned, behind every renewable energy project that is brought online, what is there, what is most important? That is the people. And that is what this report then finally was able to bring up to the surface, rather than keeping it as a model and numbers. Because at that time it was about how many numbers does a renewable energy job sector generate. And then when we granulate it, we desegregate it, we go deep into it, what do we find? We find that workers, engineers, technicians, entrepreneurs, researchers, trainers, communities, all are part of this ecosystem. And this report then has made the human dimension, the people behind it, come to the surface. And I think that is being given more attention than the technologies themselves. In general, when we talk of renewables, we talk very, very widely about about renewable energy technologies. This is the focus on the people behind those technologies who make that technology deployment possible every day out in the field, which has made this huge, huge success possible, which is a national success story which we are talking about. What is also important is that this report has highlighted that the opportunities that are emerging from this sector are very different from the opportunities that were there 10 years ago, when we were looking at a model and saying X number of hours of X number of people, you calculate, multiply X number of generation, and therefore this number of jobs. So we are now looking at it in a much more informed, intelligent, thinking way, because it's keeping into account all the changes that are happening in our environment, which is reflecting in how that job story is changing. So it is a dynamic job story that is happening. And that job story has now to include, rather than just the numbers, what is the quality of those jobs? Which are these jobs? Where are they being created? Are they providing safety, dignity, pathways for growth, meaningful opportunities for young people, for women? As Rana pointed out, that this is an important time in careers when people leave their education behind and have to look at jobs. So this is the people story, the job story, the quality of those jobs. So this promise of clean energy, which India is well on its way to realizing, it doesn't end, or it's not complete without the employment and opportunity that this employment has, and what kind of employment that is. And this is what we have to start thinking about carefully, because this workforce is not static. It was earlier just about people, just numbers. But the dynamism of this workforce, how is it evolving? It is evolving how technologies are evolving. What is happening in terms of technology? There is so much change that is happening. Digitalization, the huge change. Energy storage, huge change. Grid, capacity of the grid to pick up this renewable energy, huge change. Artificial intelligence, which is helping to drive efficiency of grids. So many changes are happening that are changing completely the complexion of the nature of jobs, the complexion and nature of jobs that this sector is continuing to generate and will continue. So it's important for us to remember that this dynamism has to be built into what we are thinking about. And therefore, what is important? It's important to see whether the workforce is ready to be able to adapt to this changing environment. I mean, your program, Secretary Saab, Surya Mitra program, it's an excellent program to show that what is it that meaningful livelihood opportunities can come out from at the very sort of ground level, and yet right up to that AI level of modeling. There are jobs that are coming out of this sector. So to think about it as this value chain, and we are moving up that skilling value chain, Therefore, the numbers are not the important thing now. It's the quality, it's the dynamism, it's the response to the needs of the sector that jobs have to be looked at in that dimension. Not to say that if you put one solar panel, 2.5 people are needed for it for 1 year type of thing. That is too simplistic now in the kind of complex environment that we are working, and we have to be conscious of that. Also, the important thing here now, and ever more important, is the collaboration and partnerships. Because this is not something which is going to be able to happen with, that small technology supplier who was making that box for the cooking of the rice in that black box. It is now a very complex and very technology driven and changing every day. It's also driven by so many other geopolitical factors which we have to be conscious about. And this ministry particularly is actually seen as the answer to a lot of those geopolitical uncertainties that we are facing, and to be able to look at all those and to be the ministry that is actually the frontline responder to that crisis and challenge. The collaboration and partnerships, therefore, are more important than ever before. I do want to say that the ministry has played a wonderful role in giving us the opportunity to bring together the industry stakeholders, the researchers, the academia, but also the partnership that CEW and NRDC have endured under the leadership of MNRE. I mean, even in a marriage, they say that 7 years leads to an age. But to be honest, Arunaba and CEW and NRDC's partnership with this report goes back to more than a decade. So it's something to say about the endurance of the partnership and the quality of the teams that have worked together, which really have worked together as one, and I have to congratulate, appreciate, and encourage these teams to continue to do this work further. So a huge, huge gratitude to these teams for what they have done, and to the leadership of MNRE, which, like I said earlier, the questions you asked, which made us rethink this whole thing, the discussions, rich discussions we had with Mayank, and the constant support that we got from Minnie. We were just talking about this earlier. So I was saying that we really picked your brain. Aapka bahut dimag khaya. And she said, humne bhi aapka bahut dimag khaya. So this constant khana of dimag has actually encouraged our appetite to do better and become stronger in the process. So Jethani ji's constant review, bringing everything back into the cycle, keeping, raising the level till it was becoming a virtuous upward cycle. The frustration that we might have had when we first came in and said, Secretary Saab ne to date hi nahi diya release karne ka report. Today, I find that it was such a good idea that we didn't do it then, and we are doing it now. So a big thank you to the teams that have been involved here. As I said earlier, given the geopolitical situation, given the juncture at which this industry is, the importance that renewables have at so many levels. I mean, at the global level, just in terms of what we owe to the planet, but what we owe as a country, as a people, to our own country to make sure that we have energy security. So at many different levels, this is a really important sector and a really important occupation, a really important commitment of the workforce to this, and hence this report is so important. So workforce readiness is here now the very, very important thing that we have to see. So to see that while the technology is evolving like this, is the workforce also being able to respond? Is our skilling system, is our capacity building system, is our education system going to be able to respond to this? That is really important, because this sector will be driven by technology. That technology will have to be powered by people. And the people have to be prepared to be able to power this sector. So that is how this is a future worth investing in. The important thing here is that we have done this work for more than a decade. First as a model, then for the first time with actual data from the ground. what we need to now do, and that is absolutely imperative, we can no longer say that this is a report that is being done by NRDC and CEW with the blessings of MNRE. At some point, it is the government of India, it is our country's report, it is our country's projection of how people will be engaged in this sector in the future, how women, how youth, how people who are living in the remotest corners of this country, how they will be involved in this, how will they be ready for it, and how will the ministry have the capacity, the institutional arrangements to be able to gather all this data, to be able to project for the future, and to be able to project the needs for the job force in the future. So the institutionalization of this report, of this work rather, not of this report, is now the need of the hour. And I will look to Secretary, I will look to Additional Secretary, to Mini Ma'am and Jethani ji, and everyone else here, and to commit here that we will be ready to support this, whether it's in the form of putting a PMU together to make this happen, but it will no longer be able to be a report that is done by external researchers, partners, academic institutions. At some point, government will be owning this, and this is the right time to bring that ownership about, because we've learned lessons, we've learned really good lessons. In more than a decade, we've learned how to do this work. It is now time for that institutional capacity to be embedded within the ministry, to be embedded in a way that this is taken forward, and that really is what I'm hoping is going to be the real outcome of this report. One is, of course, that we'll get a very good sense of what the report is like when we see the presentation, the granularity of it, the questions that have been answered, the questions that have been asked and answered, but also the questions that will be asked in the future. And it's not just about job numbers, it's about all the other things that I mentioned earlier. So I think that is really the real next step that I'm hoping, and we are all hoping, that will come out of this work. It's almost become a tradition now for me to usually say something I've come from Lucknow, so I usually like to remember some of the Urdu couplets that I've grown up with. So one of the things that my team, which has become very good at it, said, oh, you must say this, and they suggested that I say this. जब हर हाथ को काम, हर आवाज को मुकाम मिले. हर हाथ को काम, everybody understands. हर आवाज को मुकाम is destination, yes, मुकाम, the end of the journey. तभी तरक्की को सच्चा अंजाम मिले. Tarakki, progress, gets its fruition in that. So that is really the what comes up from a report like this, that it is jobs for everyone, different quality, whether it is from someone who's modeling the AI to someone who's cleaning a solar panel in a remote village in Gujarat. So I would like just to say at the end a couplet from a young Urdu poet, Iqbal Asher, who you should read. He's come up very well. And this is my dream. I mean, I'm at this age and stage in life when I have few dreams, but those are really important dreams. And it is up to this group of people to help us to make those dreams come true. I mean, you know, at this age and stage in life, I can share the dreams and do only a little bit. To take it forward is everybody here. So, yahi junoon, yahi ek khwaab mera hai. This is my dream, my junoon, my passion. Wahan chirag jala dein, jahan andhera hai. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. And as always, for such a powerful opening and perfectly setting the tone for the day, actually. So without further ado, I would now like to quickly move, because we started a bit late. So it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Arunabha Ghosh, CEO of the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, for his opening remarks. Mr. Ghosh, please. I think we are missing the excitement and energy in the room. Can we have a round of applause, please? दीपा ने इतनी अच्छी अच्छी शायरियाँ बोली, किसी ने वाह वाह नहीं किया. Please. Thank you.
No, thanks a lot, and thank you, Deepa. And let's save also the applause for the actual work that will be presented. Deepa ended with with that share about dreams and passions. If your dreams do not scare you, they're not big enough. That's former president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. If your dreams do not scare you, they're not big enough. And I told this to my now 13-and-a-half-year-old daughter when she was about 6 years old. And when she was 7, I took her to Selco in Bangalore. As you spend a day with them, see how a solar panel is put together. So Harish Hande said, you know, this is our youngest ever intern in the history of renewable energy. A few months later, I was giving a lecture at IIT Madras. And among other things, I was talking about jobs, etc. So after the lecture, some students came up to me and said, you know, we are fourth-year students. I said, okay. I said, so like, you're going to get into the workforce. What next for you? They said, we are in trouble. I said, why? So, you know, 4 years ago or 3 years ago when we applied, IIT Madras was known and still is known for, you know, mechanical engineers. So many of us applied for mechanical engineering. Why? Because also Chennai has this ecosystem of automobile plants, etc. So many of us would get hired in the auto industry. So I said, so what's the problem? They said, now these auto industries only want computer science engineers. Effectively, they were saying, and this is just a few months before the pandemic, but effectively they were saying that, you know, even as India was not yet a sort of EV superpower, not even now it isn't yet, but companies were beginning to signal what kind of people they wanted. So when we talk about renewables in the context of the larger energy transition, and when I tell my 7-year-old daughter or a 22-year-old engineer, I think back about something that Government of India, there was Department of DPIIT at MOCI, CII, ourselves, some of us were involved about a decade ago about the future of jobs. And we produced 2 giant reports. But effectively, those 2 reports could be summarized as the future of jobs is to create a system of lifelong learning. So we can't actually, we can count the jobs, we can somewhat understand the dynamism, but we can't really predict where we'll all end up. We only have to dream big enough that we are scared. So in that context, I'm of course delighted that we've got the guidance, as Deepa said, from Secretary Sarangi, from Mr. Tiwari, from Mini Ma'am, from Dr. Jethani, and so many other colleagues. And this partnership that Deepa was referring to, we were dreaming big in 2010. When CW was starting, when the solar mission was starting, when the partnership between CW and NRDC was starting, the only bit I disagree with Deepa's amazing address right now is that we did not believe that it was a pipe dream. And I remember asking the then Minister of Renewables, I said, sir, when will MNRE become an infrastructure ministry? And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, so far historically, I mean, the history of MNRE goes back many decades, but it's been an R&D ministry. It's a demonstration ministry. The points that Deepa was making, whether it's solar cooking or something else, and of course, that was needed. But in 2010, 11, 12, I was telling the minister, the then minister, we have to imagine this ministry as an infrastructure ministry. And today, it is one of the core infrastructure drivers for the economy and a lesson for the world. Now, how do you build an energy system that is clean despite having budget constraints? If you have deep pockets, you know, money can buy you anything except love. But if you don't have money, you have to design institutions. If you don't have money, you have to design markets. If you don't have money, you have to create competition. In the process, you then not only generate the jobs, but you also open up a dynamic set of energy transitions, not just a single transition from dirty to clean, but from no energy to energy, from rural to urban, from deeper integration to global energy markets, from looking at fuels of the past to looking at fuels of the future, from looking at centralized grids to more distributed grids, from looking at linear systems to things that are much more disruptive, leveraging not just decarbonization but digitalization. So what will be the jobs in renewable energy and the energy transition? It will certainly not just be the one screwing that solar panel onto a bracket onto the ground. And it is with that intention that we dreamt big, that we scared ourselves, and what you're seeing today is just one more minor milepost in a very long journey of energy transition. But today we offer more evidence, we offer an idea of equity, especially when we bring the gender dimension into the conversation, and we convert this conversation into what it means for the economy. At CW, we've estimated that the green economy in India can create 48 million jobs. So what we are doing is simply, passing the baton on from milepost to milepost. But what we are not doing is shrinking our dreams. So thank you for all your support and your partnership, and may it continue and bloom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for the opening remarks. So yeah, I think that this is now we are moving to a very important segment of the day, where we will, for the first time, be talking about some of the numbers, insights, and key findings and sector trends as part of the study that the team has found out. So quickly, I would like to invite the team from NRDC India and CW, Dipesh Taurani from NRDC India, Nicole Almeida from CW, to share some of the key findings and insights and outcomes of this extensive exercise that we had finally concluded. You'll be making a presentation for the next 10-12 minutes. So over to you. Dipesh, I think you'll have to change that.
Thank you, Rana, for the invite, and thank you, Arunabha sir, Deepa ma'am, for those always inspiring words. From these broad discussions, we want to now deep dive into the report and what this shows. I think before deep diving, it's also important to look at where we stand at the moment. People in the room have been instrumental in these contributions. Just as a reminder, India stands, as Deepa mentioned, at a critical juncture where we are the third highest installed RE capacity globally. We've also achieved our NDCs 5 years ahead of its target. With that backdrop, as has been mentioned before, what is driving all of this is the workforce behind. And again, as has been mentioned, NRDC and CW's partnership, understanding that workforce goes back a long way. And the team is excited for this data and for this report to see light of day. Diving a little bit deeper into the methodology, the objectives that we started for this report, as Arunabha sir mentioned, was broad. We tried to dream big with this report, but we still stuck to direct employment surveys. We all understand that a lot of the sectors have matured enough that there are a lot of indirect jobs, but for this report, we have stuck to direct employment across RE sectors, looking at manufacturing and the deployment industries. The methodology that we used primary survey of industry with the help of MNRE divisions, and we developed full-time equivalent coefficients. You might hear this term in coming slides. What this formula does is helps homogenize the different sectors, the different phrases, and the different skills to help us understand what is happening across the industry. So one of these numbers that are here is also something that will come up again. We approached about 1,000 companies for their responses, ended up with about 250 of these. And this is what all of our analysis is based on. As I mentioned, we tried to dream big, and we covered about 16 sectors. Each of these sectors was divided across 4 business phases to analyze those FTEs. I want to dive straight into the insights. One of the key insights for us, especially for the solar sector, was the rooftop solar sector created 44.68 FTE job years per megawatt. I do want to bring to your attention that these are per unit capacity numbers. As opposed to floating solar, which was 2.21, and ground mounted for 1. One of the reasons that the team sort of concluded was, especially for rooftop solar, the high employment intensity in the business was in the business development phase, owing to the expansive work across state and central subsidies, landmark subsidies, and schemes like PM Surya Ghar. That same sort of trend continued, that the distributed energy systems created higher employment intensity. Biomass to power, small hydropower, and rooftop solar, as you can see, created higher employment intensity compared to other utility scale systems. For the further insights, I will now invite Nicole Almeida from CEW.
Thanks, Dipesh. Turning to the next insights, what the data reveals is a critical skills imperative. Approximately 60% of the jobs in the solar and wind deployment sectors are semi or highly skilled jobs. Companies are increasingly seeking to employ folks who have sector-specific technical skills and have prioritized hiring those who have prior experience in the sector. This requirement is particularly high in the business development and the pre-construction phases, as you can see in the example for wind deployment on the left. If we also look at solar module manufacturing and wind manufacturing, this is again very well pronounced, where the skills requirement for the highly skilled workforce and the semi-skilled workforce raises to around 85 to 90%. But the same, it's not a uniform trend across sectors. The bioenergy sector shows a different story. Low-skilled workers and semi-skilled workers make up around 55 to 60% of the workforce. Now, this is not the same across technologies, and this is very different from other decentralized or distributed sources such as rooftop solar. This reflects how bioenergy actually is an opportunity for providing rural livelihoods and better workforce across the country because of the decentralized nature. Since a lot of the skills required, you don't need to reskill a workforce, it's a huge opportunity. It sits uniquely among the other energy transition technologies for us to leverage. Going ahead, our insights find that even though we've deployed a lot in the last few years across the sectors, women represent 11% of the active solar and wind workforce. Of these women, of the women who are actually are in the workforce, 63% are engaged in non-technological roles. What this means is that women are mainly in roles that are relating to admin, HR, basically not the STEM roles. Overall, of the companies in our sample, 44% of companies had women on their board. So while this is a bit encouraging that companies do have women on their boards, the figure of 11%, regardless of the high deployments, show a structural gap that is also in the larger economy of India. But filling this gap would require very focused interventions, not just around creating entry barriers, but also for career advancement for women. We go now to the jobs generated and the workforce added. So our research shows that in the last 4 years, the renewable energy sectors have added a total workforce of 6.45 lakh. 62% of this workforce was added in the rooftop solar sector, followed by jobs added through the PM Kusum scheme. A large share of, if you see over the last 4 years, a large share of jobs were actually added in financial year 2025. This was because most of the deployment was done in the distributed sources, as Dipesh mentioned, which are highly labor intensive. Our research also shows that over 44 lakh full-time equivalent jobs can be generated from achieving the 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel target and the National Green Hydrogen Mission combined. Rooftop solar again could contribute to 42% of this total. And of all these jobs that would be created, around 12.8 lakh jobs would be in the operation and maintenance of the projects and in manufacturing, which means these are long-term sustained jobs. Our research provides 4 recommendations to 4 different stakeholders. For the ministry and related institutions, the focus, as Ms. Deepa said, is on institutionalization and the institutionalization of data collection. For RE companies, there are 2 key things. One is on gender, which means ensuring career advancement for women and more mentoring opportunities. But as we saw the need of high-skilled jobs, it is critical for the industry to embed a culture of continuous learning so that they can retain their employees and they themselves could take up the higher skill jobs. For industry associations, in the last few years, automation and more recently AI have really evolved. And there needs to be productivity gains out of this revolution within the energy transitions. So if we want to accelerate deployment, we need to leverage these new technologies, and industry associations could play a key role in facilitating these discussions. And lastly, the skilling ecosystem. As more companies are seeking workers who have prior experience, this has a huge imperative for skilling policy, which means we need to take on-ground practical training and industry exposure more seriously. All of these points are also some things that will be covered in the breakout sessions that we will have later in the day. To conclude, I would like to thank everybody here, and we will be taking more questions throughout the session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dipesh and Nicole. There's a slight change in the agenda. We are going to launch the report right away because Additional Secretary Sir needs to leave for a very urgent meeting. So I would like to invite everyone on the stage, please. The dignitaries Deepa ma'am, Arunabha sir, Secretary Sir, Additional Secretary Sir on the stage, please. Mini ma'am, Jethani sir, and also the program team. Dipesh, Nicole, Akanksha, Rishabh, Siddharth, Shivali, please on the stage. Thank you. And also would like to invite Jay sir, Anupam Kumar. Please, thank you, sir. And Pallavi, obviously, Pallavi Girolkar.
ought to be really well brought out.
No, no, please. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We'll now like to move to a special address. For this, it is my pleasure to invite Sri Santosh Sarangi sir, Secretary MNRE, for his special address. Sir, welcome you on the stage, please.
Chairperson NRDC, Mr. Arnav Ghosh of CEW, esteemed audience, I can see some industry leaders as well, friends from media, the teams of CEW, NRDC and MNRE who have actually worked on this report and have brought us to this stage. At the outset, I must compliment and congratulate the team for coming up with an outstanding report, a report which only reaffirms our commitment to green transition in our country. All of you are aware of a lot of positive externalities associated with green transition, but the element of people's involvement that both Ms. Bagai and Mr. Ghosh spoke of is intrinsic to a successful transition. So the transition could be a turbulent transition, could be a violent transition, but the positive externalities involved in keeping people as the focus of green transition is intrinsic, and that comes out very clearly in this particular report. We have a couple of days back, when I was reading the newspapers, I came across a news item which talked of how some of the major cities are sinking. Some of you might have noticed Mexico City, New York, Delhi, Mumbai are cities which are witnessing a very slow, gradual sinking, which may not be very evident, but geologists are able to measure it, map it, and notice it. And why is this happening? This is happening largely because of the exploitation of minerals, exploitation of groundwater, and many other fossil fuels that we have been concentrating on. Netherlands was very quick to catch on the implications of this and stopped natural gas extraction from the North Sea quite early on. And they felt some tremors in the initial days and then decided that they are not going to exploit natural gas from the Northern Sea. And they are now seeing the results, and after that there has been lot of reduction in the tremors. So that understanding that overexploitation of our mineral resources, our groundwater, our fossil fuels can actually lead to a lot of instability in the way we live is also basic to our green transition commitment. And in this, India has shown that India's economic growth trajectory as well as sustainability goals can be pretty well aligned, and this is also evident in the way we have paced our green transition journey. Last year we did about 51 gigawatt of solar and wind, and hopefully this momentum will continue for the next few years and will probably expand in the subsequent years. As very rightly pointed out by both Ms. Bagai and Mr. Ghosh, the kind of skilling requirement in different sectors, whether it is solar, wind or bioenergy, green hydrogen, is different. But in the entire value chain, starting from generation to transmission to deployment to post-operation maintenance, in all the entire value chain, there is a significant requirement of personnel and especially skilled manpower, semi-skilled and highly skilled manpower, which is going to be the requirement in future. So in this context, India will have to be ready with creation of an ecosystem, which is ready with that pipeline of human resources, which are equipped with the kind of skills, equipped with the kind of job requirements which these kind of domain require. So in this context, this particular report is only going to supplement our effort, and the offer of Madam Bagai to actually open a PMU and coordinate the entire follow-up of this report is a very welcome offer, and we grab it with open arms. So please go ahead and let's do it, because this is extremely crucial, and we would like to have a network of institutions and center of excellence who are devoted in this particular area, and ensure that at a country level, at a pan-Indian level, we have the skill centers, centers of excellence, university ecosystem, which are figuring out how to supplement this initiative of 4.8 crore job creation that this report talks about. So MNRE would be more than a willing partner in this particular initiative, and I welcome both CEW and NRDC to supplement this particular initiative, and our team here would be more than happy to be associated in this joint initiative. I remember the conversation we had about a year back when you had come with this report. That time we wanted certain other fine tuning to be done, but I didn't expect that a primary survey involving so many industries, so many companies could actually be completed in such quick time. So compliments to your team for having done it so quickly and coming up with a report which is much more robust, much stronger, and this has been a tremendous effort on the part of the team. So those of MNRE, Minnie and her team, and people from NRDC and CW, my heartiest compliments and congratulations for this report, and we look forward to a very strong follow-up of this report in the form of a follow-up activity in the MNRE and a strong PME here which is able to take this forward. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for such thought-provoking remarks, and for continuously supporting us and guiding us in this very important work. Thanks a lot again. I would now like to invite Dr. Jeevan Kumar Jethani, Scientist F, MNRE, to deliver the vote of thanks. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rana. This is my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks to the eminent dignitaries and the distinguished participants of this launch event of the report, Driving the Energy Transition, Workforce Skill and Gender in India's Renewable Energy Sector. So I'm thankful to all dignitaries highlighting that the achieving clean energy transition will require not only the investment, technology, and infrastructure, but also a skilled workforce. The report contributes significantly to the important conversations and provide a valuable evidence base for the policymakers, industry, skilling institutions, and other stakeholders. On behalf of MNRE, NRDC, CW, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Secretary MNRE, Shri Santosh Kumar Sarangi ji, for his continuous guidance. Under his leadership, as he mentioned, that we have achieved 51 gigawatt last year, and he has set another milestones of achieving higher capacities in the coming years. Sir, we are thankful that for agreeing to take forward this report and further institutionalize this goal of working towards the workforce development in the country for the new energy sector. I also extend my sincere thanks to Additional Secretary Shri Mayank Tiwari ji, though he could not speak because of the paucity of some time, he has to attend some meeting. But his continuous support in renewable sector is commendable. I would also like to acknowledge my sincere thanks to Ms. Deepa Singh Bagai, Country Director, NRDC, Dr. Arnaba Ghosh, CEO, CW, for their commitments, partnership, and sustained collaboration throughout the course of this study. Over the past 3 years, working sincerely with the MNRE, they have collectively contributed through research, consultation, technical analysis, and continuous engagement in bringing this important report to the fruition. Their collaborative efforts reflects the value of partnership in advancing evidence-based discussion on the workforce development, skill, and gender inclusion in India's renewable sector. I would particularly acknowledge the efforts of Ms. Mini Madam, DDG MNRE, whose guidance, coordination, and sustained engagement were instrumental in taking out this report from concept to the completion. I would also like to acknowledge the support and continuous contribution of the officers and officials across various divisions of MNRE, whose valuable inputs and engagement enrich the study. Our sincere appreciation also goes to the industry representative, experts, researchers, training institutions, and all stakeholders who participated in the consultation and contributed their perspective during this work. The report launched today is a testament to the value of collaboration between the government, industry, research institution, and the development partners. We are confident that the findings and recommendations emerging from this work will contribute meaningfully to future discussions on workforce development, skilling, and gender inclusion within India's renewable energy sector. Finally, I would like to thank all participants joining us today for their contribution in this important dialogue. Thank you very much. I would like to request Ms. Deepa Singh Bagai and Arma Ghosh to kindly facilitate. Secretary sir, sir, please come on dais. Mini madam, please also join. Mini madam, please also join.
So what is the idea?
Sir.
Here actually I should be felicitating both of them for having done the study.
I request Dr. Ghosh to felicitate Mini Madam. Dr. Ghosh to kindly felicitate Madam Mini Madam. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are-
Yes, we have to. Absolutely. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. This is very precious.
Thank you all, and with this we close this inaugural session, and thereafter we'll be having a panel discussion here itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you. Cheers, cheers. Can I request MNRE volunteers to please help with the chair placements? Dipesh, if you can check someone. So there's a brief transition now. We'll be moving to a panel discussion, but before that we can spend a few minutes. We just need to set the stage up, and if anyone needs to have a very quick break, please feel free to. But we need everyone to be back in the next 2 minutes. Thank you. a kind request to everyone who are sitting at the back to please come at the front. Please feel free to come at the front. Welcome back, everyone. Now we are moving to a very interesting discussion, which is a leadership dialogue on fortifying India's clean energy workforce to accelerate India's clean energy transition. For this, in this discussion, we'll be hearing from leaders from the industry and international organizations to deliberate on India's RE workforce readiness and collectively guide the ecosystem to strengthen skilling and gender balance in the sector. For this, we have a stellar panel, and the panel will be moderated by my colleague Siddharth Arora from NRS India. First of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Sujoy Ghosh, Vice President and Managing Director, India from First Solar. Welcome, Mr. Ghosh. Mr. Ghosh has played a key role in building First Solar's India's business for the past 14 years, driving one of the world's largest thin-film photovoltaic manufacturing centers. Mr. Ghosh brings over 35 years of industry experience across solar energy, power, and industrial automation. Welcome again, Mr. Ghosh. Next up, I'd like to invite Ms. Namrata Mukherjee from the International Solar Alliance. Ms. Mukherjee is a strategic planning specialist at ISA and an international energy trade and investment expert with over 21 years of experience in this space. She has deep expertise in clean energy investments, public-private partnerships, program design, stakeholder engagement, and policy advocacy. Welcome, Mr. Mukherjee. Next up, I would like to invite Mr. Rajendra Mehta, Chief Human Resources Officer, India and South Asia from Suzlon Group. Welcome, Mr. Mehta. Mr. Mehta has held senior leadership roles before this at Wellspun Group and other prominent corporations. At Suzlon, Mr. Mehta is actively contributing to company's strategy to build 5,000 green careers annually in manufacturing, operations, AI, robotics, and RE. Welcome, Mr. Mehta again. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Sanjay Ganju, Director General, Indian Federation of Green Energy. Welcome, sir. With over 3 decades of experience, Mr. Ganju brings deep expertise across industry, government engagement, and social development. In the past, Mr. Ganju has driven skill development initiatives for over 1 lakh youth from the rural communities, beyond his other notable contributions in this space. Last but not the least, I'd like to invite Ms. Manisha Nair, Senior Vice President and Head, Human Resources and Corporate Communications at Blue Pine Energy. Welcome, Ms. Nair. Ms. Nair is a passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ms. Nair has championed community-led initiatives for women's skill development in the past. Her work on just transition initiatives has positively impacted for more than 35,000 beneficiaries. Recently, she was also elected as a co-chair of the National Solar Energy Federation's Women in Solar Energy Task Force. A very warm welcome to all the esteemed panelists again. And lastly, I would also like to invite my dear colleague, Siddharth Arora, Associate Director, Renewable Energy at NRDC India for the moderation. Siddharth, the floor is all yours. You have around 50 minutes to 1 hour for this.
Yeah, thanks Rana, and thanks a lot to all the panelists and taking out time. I understand some of you have actually flown out of the city, and I think Chennai, Mumbai, Pune. And thanks a lot to all the audience present here and the officers from the ministry. Before we actually go into the discussion, I would like to share a brief moment of enlightenment I had today morning while I was getting dressed up for the event. Throughout my professional journey of about 15 years, I have been asked questions by head of the organizations or the HRs, but today is the day I am asking questions to some of the head of the HR and head of the institutions that way. And Namrata, actually you have interviewed me while you were setting up SARIP, so that was a long back. So it feels like a reverse Uno to me. Sure. Yeah, so going back to the discussion now, and we heard from in the morning and by Deepa, Secretary said that India's energy transition is just not about, clean energy transition is not only the energy story, it's the job story also at the same time. And if we have to achieve our targets, whether 2030 or net zero, so we need to have a formidable workforce which is ably equipped. There is inclusion to it, and they're future ready. And that's what the discussion will be having about, and we'll try to keep it under three broad categories, like where are the jobs emerging, and how do we build a workforce to meet this demand, and also to ensure that there is inclusiveness in this. So on that, my first question is to Mr. Rajendra, that you represent Suzlon, one of the largest pioneer in the wind industry. And as India continues to scale up the wind deployment, yeah, I hope that's okay.
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah. So as the wind deployment is going on, it is increasing. What you see as the biggest workforce priorities in the sector, and what is the how Suzlon is preparing its talent strategy to ensure that these kind of demands are being met, and with the new advancement in the technology. So your views on that, sir.
Sure, thank you, Sid. I'll go a little roundabout in answering all this, because I think this forum I will use to communicate some, learnings as well, so that it's in a collective good. With the way energy needs are coming up, to my mind, I think today we are sitting at a wind of 50 gigawatt. Next 100 gigawatt is inevitable, that we'll have to ensure that this installations happen. Now, with every gigawatt, there's a 4,500 net addition of people directly involved, and there are 4 times that number, which is an indirect, count that is to be needed. For 100 gigawatt, it's about 15 odd lakh minimum numbers. Am I audible? Yeah. So 15 odd lakh additional employment will get generated. Can you hear me? I'm actually closing. I'm doing that, but I think, okay, that's fine. So almost like 14.5 lakh employment generation it will do. Today the issue is, and wind being a wind, a very technical product, the need for highly skilled employees are very high. So whether for turbines, blades, for anything that we need. Now, our education system across states do not have very structured programs, whether in ITIs or in diploma colleges or degree colleges. There are no formal education on wind that is there. Neither the government courses which are, which are kind of approved courses, those are also irrelevant, from the kind of content that it must have. So what we end up doing is we end up training our people through kind of APSSD, some of the partnership that we have done. We are building our own training centers. We are onboarding a lot of, a lot of feet on the ground, kind of fresh graduates on board. We train them for 3-6 months and then deploy. The amount of time it takes in terms of skilling and then deploying and then ensuring that the productivity happens, there's a loss of time that happens. On top of that, there's attrition. So the challenges are actually pretty high. So how we will be able to address this is obviously in two ways. One, that we believe that it's just not about ITIs or graduates or diploma holders. We should try and ensure that we de-skill the jobs by ensuring that there is a lot of digital interventions that we bring around. If you de-skill the job and ensure that even a normal graduate or a 10th, 12th pass employee is able to do that, that would be our focus areas. Even from an economic context perspective, there are about 35 crore youth who do not have either ITIs or diploma or degree qualifications. To really be able to serve the country and the sector, I think our need that we are currently working on is how do we de-skill each jobs and ensure that through remote controls, through remote troubleshooting, we are able to manage the continuous operations. But skilling at in today's time, we do almost about 1,600 to 2,000 new graduates. We train them and bring them on board. That's what we're currently doing.
Sure, and I think the demand for talent is definitely increasing that way.
It's increasing.
And
because our growth last year was about 60% from FY 25 to 26. From now to next year, we are looking at another similar sort of growth. If there are no people and there is a lag between when we hire and when we deploy, then obviously it's a loss of opportunity for the enterprise and even for people to really be meaningfully employed.
sure. Thank you on that. And I have a follow-up question to Mr. Sanjay ji. And Sanjay ji, so there's a point that there is a demand, there is certain talent, and the workforce which is there, it will only convert into, employability if there is a robust pipeline of skilled manpower which is there. You represent IFG and you are also chairman to Bhavsar Foundation, which is a pioneer institute in providing the technical skills to the students. And we have seen that in the report, the bioenergy sector is one of the labor-intensive sector. And from your experience, both from IFGE and your bioenergy and the skilling you are providing, what are the biggest workforce challenges you see in skilling, and what needs to be done to strengthen that? And we are able to produce a good skill force, at least in the bioenergy sector.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, NRDC, CEU, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, for conducting this, report, bringing out this report and conducting this workshop today. This subject is dear to me because there is a reason. Because of my background and the work I have done so far. I worked with FICCI almost 13 years. I dealt with almost 12 sectors there. Then I moved to social sector, and one of the largest skill development agencies in India I represent as a chairman of Bhavsar Foundation, which was earlier Dainik Bhaskar Foundation. And presently I am also Director General of Indian Federation of Green Energy since last almost 10 years, which works in renewable energy and that too bioenergy, particularly in bioenergy. So I live this subject day in, day out. And I take cue from the data which was, shared here in this presentation, that bioenergy is the low-skill workforce of, almost 50 to 60%. So there is a reason to that. Bioenergy sector has recently developed in India. It's almost 10 years old. And it's a complex subject. It is not only mechanical engineering, it is not only electric engineering, it is civil, it is mechanical, it is electric, it is biotechnology, it is chemicals, it is agriculture. It is a composite sector where you represent almost 7 to 8 streams of different sciences. So a worker in this sector has to be so competent that he can deal with these subjects. So he may have a small element of each particular science, but he has to deal with that. So we are dealing with live living material. We are dealing with civil construction. We are dealing with machines. And what my experience in this sector since last 10 years is that people, the project developers, the project operators, they are still struggling. There are many reasons. I think skill development is one of those. There may be technological reasons, there may be feedstock issues, off-take issues and others. But skill development is also one of the major reasons why they are struggling. So if this sector has to stabilize, then the workforce has to be of that quality. So if that quality has to be brought, then the skill development ecosystem has to support it. So I'll come back to the skill development ecosystem, which I deal with in my capacity of chairman Bhavsar Foundation, and I have been in that sector since almost 12, 13 years. Unfortunately, in India, it's such a nice report, but unless it is implemented, unless we create jobs, it is of no use, right? But unfortunately, the ecosystem that we have unfortunately created in India is of, let me be very blunt, is of no use. We may be producing plumbers, we may be producing, masons, but honestly, I will not employ them, employ those plumbers and masons from such institutes for my own personal work, right? Because the quality of training is absolutely, is absolutely poor. I'm speaking this from, being an implementing agency for skill development in India. The reason for that is the government of India has not created skill development as a priority sector. We may talk a lot about it. We may, give lots of slogans, Skill India and most, things like that. But when it comes to creating an ecosystem, you will see the difference. If we have the centers of excellence or, institutions of excellence in India in different sectors, they are run by national, central government. Whether it is an IIM, whether it's an IIT, whether it's an AIMS, whether it's road construction, it is, an NHAI, whether it is a, in government-run educational institutions, schools, Kendriya Vidyalaya stands out as compared to any other, government school, or Navodaya Vidyalaya, or central universities. So there are hundreds of such examples. Why skill development only, why only the skill development sector has been left out? Why we are not able to create national institutes for skill development? We may have created an NSDC for 15 years ago. So that is comparable to what your, NCERT or CBSE is. But it is not implementing the project itself. So there is no national ITI. You may have state ITIs. So what happens when you create a national institution of that stature? You create a benchmarking of, the qualities of national level. From all over India, people will apply, students will apply, and the best will get selected in those institutions, and then they will create the stature of that institution. So if we create 10,000 or 20,000 ITIs in India, we will be able to create the best quality manpower for India, and then states or private sector will emulate. They will also try to compete with them. So the benchmarking will happen at the highest level. Then we will become the skill capital of the world. And what we have done since last 15 years, we have downgraded our skill development program. ITIs have become defunct because we have created these small 1 year, 1 month, 3 month RPL, this, that, and other programs. We are also doing that because I have been asked to do that. So is a 3 month, trained skilled worker, will he be able to do justice with Suzlon? Will he be able to do justice with any company which demands, a quality skilled manpower? So fundamentals have to be corrected. Then this report has a meaning. And now within that also I see, for example, now this ecosystem has created training providers. But are they really helpful for Suzlon? He himself said that ITIs or other institutions who are creating manpower for him, they are of no worth, they are of no use him. So then allow some flexibility in your system. For example, when we were talking to MNRE, I am very blunt, within the ministry only, I am trying to put my point across. So I was talking to Dr. Sangeeta Srivastav. As IFG with so many members, I would like to get implement this training for my members. But the RFP which you have come out doesn't make me eligible to do that. So you have to create systems with that kind of flexibility where industry, Suzlon, if he is willing to do it, give him some sort of support and let him do it, or Indian Biogas Association or some other association. So that system has to be reoriented. Then only things will be better, and then only we will be able to create in bioenergy sector itself. For example, in a CBG plant of say 5 tons. You need at least 40 to 50 workers. So with the kind of targets we have set, almost a lakh of manpower is required in that sector in next 2 years. In biomass, we need lakhs of workers. But where are the workers? The plants are struggling. So that is my basic point, and sorry if I have been a bit blunt and straightforward.
That's totally fine, sir. I mean, so we understand the challenges are definitely there, and building a workforce at scale require dedicated capacity building programs and a good alignment with certain institutions. Coming on to that, Namrata, you represent ISA, and ISA is implementing number of capacity building programs, solar fellowship programs with IIT Delhi, star centers, solar for she initiatives. So how are these initiatives helping strengthen the entire ecosystem, and what are the key learnings you have, if you can share some things on that?
Thank you so much, Sid. I am nervous. I have a script, given that I have played this role for you. But at the outset, thank you so much, NRDC and CW, and many congratulations to you for coming out with this report at a very timely Look, I feel skills and workforce is actually not a soft issue anymore. It's like core infrastructure, the way we plan megawatts and the way we plan financing flows and the way we plan manufacturing. So to be very honest, skills and workforce has to go hand in hand with any other core infrastructure, something that I think should be the starting point of any discussion. And for workforce and skills, I'll talk about 2-3 things that we're doing in ISA. We have a little aversion to the term capacity building because it gets associated with a few trainings here and there. And so I'll just talk about what we're doing as a, ecosystem creation around skilling. And then I'll talk about some learnings from the Global South that could be relevant for us in India and how we're taking it elsewhere. So as you know, we are a 126 country member alliance, and a lot of our country base is in Africa and Latin America. There are 2-3 key mechanisms through which we drive the skilling and training ecosystem development. One is what you talked about in terms of the partnerships with education institutions. The key one is our master's program, which is for public policy practitioners, which is member countries nominate from their respective ministries officials who come to IIT Delhi for a 2-year in-person program training, which is on renewable energy deployment. And we actually give them a ISA Solar Fellowship at the end of this training, because a key component of that training also has a lot of solar deployment related policy aspects. What happens at the end of this is basically they're not only technically trained, but these people are policy makers who go back to their ministries and then look at how deployment can be mainstreamed. So we have 5 batches which have successfully concluded, and 2 more are in the process of graduating. We have 93 students from different countries who have come and taken this program up and are going back to their ministries and helping in the deployment related policy making. There's a second key initiative which is very hands-on, which is called the STAR-C initiative. That is the Solar Technology Application Resource Centers. What we do is basically in countries that are interested to deploy more solar, we partner with the local universities and institutes there to set up a center within their universities where we provide hardware and also soft technical knowledge about basically installations, about testing, and how to do entrepreneurship related incubation in those centers. And the way in which we're scaling this is that we don't want this to be a support from India or from the West, because this is being supported by the European Union and UNIDO. We're trying to make a sustainable model of doing training of trainers within those universities who can then run these programs on their own, so that we don't have to fly in and fly out international experts over there. We have 12 operational STAR-Cs in our different member countries, and there are another 8 which are going to come up by the end of this year, so 20 STAR-C centers. Our overall goal is to link these STAR centers to a global capability center, which will become the hub, which will cater to these spokes across our different countries. So that's the second way in which we are trying to do at least project preparation related skilling locally for those countries. And then we also have what you spoke about, the solar professional fellowships and the Solar for She programs, which is more around the youth and gender. But our objective is not to, again, keep these as just name titles. The way in which we operate on these is to integrate within ISA's programmatic initiatives. So at least for the Solar for She initiative, for instance, in Africa, we've partnered with the Barefoot College and the Solar Mamas program, where we're actually going to the grassroots and trying to train women in the communities to deploy solar home systems. So broadly, these are the ways in which we're operating as ISA. 3 key learnings that I'll tell you that are becoming important. One is definitely that a lot of training we feel becomes important when it's hands-on training, when you're actually teaching them about a real project, when they're seeing and implementing hands-on. So a lot of the solar pumps, decentralized use applications, rooftop or solar-based charging, you can't teach these in classrooms. You have to go on the field and then show them, which means a lot of partnerships then come into picture, that you partner with industries and then actually give those live demonstration. Second thing that we are observing is a diversification of the workforce, because it's no longer limited to installers and mechanics, but it's also diversifying into areas like data scientists, also moving into quality assurance providers. So there are new fields which are coming up within the workforce demands, right? And the third thing is we can't keep it siloed, as like I told you in the beginning, as 1 or 2 training programs. It has to be a more institutionalized approach where we're looking at the complete ecosystem and also maintaining a sustainability more from a local ownership of the skilling that we do. So yeah.
These are some of wonderful solutions I see you have provided on this, and some solution at scale. We have some of the examples, and coming back to Rajendji again, to you. 2025, Suzlon initiated one of its biggest green skill development program, I think with the state of Andhra Pradesh, where you target to train about 12,000 students or trainers, which includes 3,000 women in that over the period of 4 years. So, I mean, how you see programs like this, where there is some buy-in from the government itself, helps in developing a skilled workforce? And second part of the question is, can these models be replicated in other sectors and other states?
Yeah, so, we have taken over 5 ITIs in state of Andhra. The objective was that can we be, for government of Andhra, a green skill initiative partners, that we prepare students in those ITIs for employment with us. So that was the objective. We have set up centers, we have set up labs all our expense. So that's what we have done. The second stage was that we go beyond those 5 ITS, go to other states like Gujarat and other states, wherever our presence is, and skill youth there. So that's what we are currently doing. Now, while we went in with that objective, there are constraints also. Now, the content that we have created, the central, NSDC and those institutions, we wanted to partner because, what we feel that government has to be in partnership with these initiatives, because then it becomes sustainable and long term and we can scale that up. Till today, we have no targets from the central agencies, NSDC, etc. It's been about a year plus, and so they will say we are giving to state of Andhra, Andhra will give you. So we are just circling around, but we are not bothered about that. But what it does is, it creates an issue of our scalability. So that's one area. Secondly, ITIs typically, if we take over ITIs and train them, ITIs typically will pass out at the age of 17. Now, government regulation that below 18 you can't employ. So much of disintegrated stuff that exists, that it creates only constraints. If we want to identify youth from the local institutions, then there are other local political system which is at a play. They will come, so these, my people have to be hired and all those stuff. So the kind of challenges that they create local system, it's unbelievable. Actually, it will create more disincentive for companies to run these kinds of institutions. Where are we talking about 14 lakh, 50,000? Training 3,000-4,000 itself becomes is a challenge. So I don't know what these things are. And so many, so we wanted to leverage multiple schemes for the benefit, whether it is, PMKVY or Deen Dayal Upadhyaya schemes. Each one have their own, siloed approach. This will not work with others. So why can't the MNRE or the right institution give one window approach, no? So many schemes are being created, and I think these are all, it doesn't let you really operate to bloom the aspiration which the organizations are looking for.
No, I think these are the kind of challenges which when it comes.
One more thing, this whole Bachelor of Vocational Education. Now, if they can partner with the institutions or companies like ours, that a student can work in our sites or project location, etc. for 5 days, and 1 day the person goes to a vocational education center and gets the theoretical exposures. But if you go and talk to BO, this Bachelor of Vocational Education, they don't recognize these kinds of practices. They want students to sit in class only. Now, if these kinds of systems remain, how do you even ensure that we are able to educate, give hands-on experience to students, so they're well equipped to handle those kinds of rules? So, plethora of challenges. I think we need to really work.
Sure, I think, and that strengthens our point where we propose to set up a PMU at ministry itself, and a body like that can definitely identify all these challenges which are there at the state level, at implementation level, and this PMU can definitely support in pressing that out. So coming to Sujoy, Sujoy, alongside the workforce deployment and the skill which is required, India's clean energy transition also depends largely on the domestic manufacturing, and you are successfully running one of the biggest plant, 3.3 gigawatt thin film PV at Tamil Nadu. And what challenges you identified while developing the entire unit over there? And if you can share your insights, how you overcome all those challenges, and this unit running, and how a skilled manforce is supporting 24/7 operations of that. Give some good answer. Everybody's getting depressed now.
So thank you. And I know just for context, we've been manufacturing as a company for the last 30 years. And Dr. Ghosh spoke about a scary dream. I'll start with the scary dream which we have, which is our competition, which is mostly from China, are now creating lights out factories, which is called dark factories. They're running 24/7, no lights, completely automated, completely robotized. You're driving every paisa out of the cost value chain, and optimizing your processes, which using AI, using digital, and that's what we are up against, right? 30 years ago, when we started the company, our annual production was 5 megawatts, way back in the late 90s. Today, we produce 8.5 megawatts a day in one of our factories, and we have 7 factories. That gives you an idea of the scale at which manufacturing of solar has happened in the last 15 years. But with that scale, what we see is a very quick transition happening to automation. So as an example, in our factory in India, all of the material handling is done by robots, right? The process from start to finish, we make a solar panel by coating a semiconductor on a piece of glass. It's not touched by human hand. It's a completely end-to-end automated process, okay? But what that does is, and then therefore when we looked at India, we never looked at the challenge. We looked at India as an opportunity because of the workforce which is there, because of the talent pool which is there. And our experience, we run factories in Vietnam, Malaysia, and the US besides India. Vietnam is known to be and perceived to be a manufacturing powerhouse and a very, very high skilled workforce, especially if you look at semiconductors, electronics, and everything in between. The productivity levels which we got from our workforce in India and Tamil Nadu, and the scale at which we ramped up to full production, was even better than our mature workforces in other Southeast Asian destinations. And the reason we could do that is 2 things, right? Just an average age in the factory is about 22 years, so it's all Gen Zs. Everything is automated, and because everything is automated, it gave us a license to hire 50% of the workforce as women in high volume manufacturing, right? So this is no grease and oil kind of business anymore. Manufacturing and deep tech manufacturing, which is what is happening today in, let's say, automotives to semiconductors to solar, is all about high precision, digital, data-driven production, right? High volume, high scale, and high precision, right? And circular, right? So these 4 elements combine in what we call as high volume production today. Now, the only challenge we faced was we assumed that whoever we are going to hire will have 0 skills, right? And therefore we hired everybody fresh from college. But what we did is about a third of our workforce we hired a year before, and we sent them to our other factories in the US and in Southeast Asia to get hands-on training in process, integration, quality, safety, those aspects. So therefore, as a investor, we're spending a year of, let's say, salaries to get people up to a certain level of skill, right? Because what we are getting from colleges or what we are getting from other manufacturing, which are more assembly type operations, we need them to unlearn all of that and get into this, deep tech manufacturing. So that's the investment we are doing, which is a function of the skill gap which exists outside. So instead, we have to take control of our own destiny, right? Ultimately, we got to deliver returns to our shareholders. And the workforce is not productive, no matter how much we talk about skill council for green jobs and et cetera, they're more focused on deployment, but not so much on the manufacturing side of things so far. right? But I think so therefore the only challenge we faced was really that there is a huge skill gap, both at the education level. So we have about 20 PhDs, about 10-15% with postgrads, and then undergrads, and then diploma engineers, right? Um, the curriculum which they are taught is perhaps 2 decades old, right? So it's not relevant. You can get theoretical knowledge, but practical knowledge, understanding high volume manufacturing, you really have to have that shop floor experience. And the only thing which we also did, and we're very happy about that, was there's an institution called NTTF. They operate in mostly out of Bangalore and Kerala, and mostly South and Jamshedpur. Now they run as a institute industrial training, and so they have CNC machines to 3D printers to automation. And what we did is we took these, let's say 600 odd women who are fresh diploma engineers, and we sent them 45 days to Bangalore to be trained on basic things on manufacturing, like lockout, tagout, safety, card punching, coming on time, how do you do a shift handover, very simple things, right? No rocket science. And again, we had to do that investment in time. And I'm saying that the opportunity therefore is that if the technical curriculum can be redesigned today at an undergrad engineer level, and Dr. Ghosh, unfortunately, we need more mechanical engineers because robotics is all about mechatronics. So you can't take mechanical engineering out of manufacturing, no matter how much computer science we produce. And you know what's happening is when we went to recruit people, the skew today is in, let's say, a typical engineering college, you have about 3,000 people, 3,000 students in computer science, 150 in mechanical engineering, and 0 civil. But when we build factories, you need civil engineers when you build a foundation for a wind turbine. If you don't have civil engineers in the country and everybody wants to study computer sciences, then there is a skew there, right? But I think the point I'm making is that undergrad technical or diploma, you need to have a bit more exposure to factories so that they are ready to join the workforce. And that connect has to be there. This, 6 weeks summer internship is a waste of time for both us and them. And so therefore what we do is we take these fresh graduates and then we spend time training them. It takes about 6 to 8 months before they become productive. That's the investment you have to do. That's a cost of doing business. And then the other challenge we have is attrition, right? So we become, the companies who try to do this become then fertile recruitment grounds for the other ones. So in our industry, for example, I know Tata Power Solar runs a program, we run this, Suzlon's doing all this. They become the poaching, and all it does is drives us cost. And so again, what we are doing is we are saying, okay, we'll automate all the process jobs are going to get automated. I mean, when we started the industry, solar industry 10, 12 years ago, O&M was all about cleaning panels. Today, it's all robots, right? Now, you have a thing which says 4.8 crore jobs and a lot of it in installation. We are working on robots to do installation of solar panels now. Why can't robots do it? Because today, for those of you in Blue Pines there on the table also, managing labor at sites, the labor is weaponized, right? And it's extremely difficult for companies who have very strict ESG norms to actually, hire and pay labor in a very transparent manner, right? So I would, as a large investor, say, okay, if we're building 500 gigawatts, 1 gigawatt of single site plants, put a bunch of robots there to do the installation. That's how this industry is being driven now, right? And so the skill level, the jobs are going to become deeper in terms of technical skills. We're going to see a lot of material science come into play as we look at new chemistry, as you look at circular economy, both in solar and batteries. But the low skill jobs are definitely going to get automated and replaced by robots. That's the way we see 10 years down the line.
Thanks a lot, Sujoy, for sharing those insights and taking a cue from the labor at the sites itself. Manisha, Blue Pine has been expanding its rural presence through different programs, skill development, training centers which are there. And can you share some of the key features, how you're designing that and how you're ensuring that these jobs definitely in future will get automated, but at today, how you see them to be a long-term sustainable jobs for these people which are at site?
Thank you, Siddharth, and thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Almost 5. It's going to be 12 now in 5 minutes. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And great to see the report launch, and I'm really looking forward to read through. So before, Siddharth, to start with the question, I want to give a little brief about who we are, because among the panel, we are still a very young, growing company. We are just 5 years old. But of course, Siddharth, like you were saying, we would like to share our success stories. Within just 5 years, we have really built up some good flagship initiatives like the skill development centers. So I would just like to take a step back and let know everybody that how we moved into skill development centers, why we thought that one thing was very clear from the start, the philosophy that we have to give it back to the societies where we work. So what we really did is we actually hired our sociologist in place, and she has also come with me here, and she was very, imperative. She was playing a very imperative role. She actually went through, and it was very important to break those glass ceilings and, at the grassroots level. You have to talk to the stakeholders, speak to them, ask them what they really want. And when that study was done, that is when we realized, of course, these are the remote areas where we have our projects. And they were very young, so many young boys and girls, graduates, they've done BBAs, and they're just sitting there thinking what they need to do. There are married women thinking what they need to do as a livelihood, entrepreneurship, bringing that thought process itself was a challenge. So now looking at that, we understood there is a need for skill development center there, and there is a need to enhance, and we of course as HRs in these IPPs, we definitely need workforce. And when it is from the community, there you have your projects, it's much more easier, right, to avoid any ROWs issues per se. So with that study, we, along with NSDC, National Skill Development, we set up, we are very proud to say that within such a short span of time, we were able to successfully build 23 skill development centers across Gujarat, Rajasthan, Karnataka, and Chhattisgarh. And through that, this is a 6 months course. It's not of course not a 1 year, but yes, 6 months course. And it is very, very a green job, I would say, creating a green job for these young children. And there were courses around solar module installation, SCADA monitoring, operations maintenance, safety roles, quality roles, which a graduate, who have completed their graduation in the village and sitting and thinking what they really need to do, were very enthusiastic in taking them. Now the beauty here was around 45% of them were women. So we were very happy to really create green jobs for them, not just for us, because we kind of only observed 38% of the population from there, but they were ready for further jobs in any other renewable sector or setup which is there wherever they are living. So that's how we build, we take it as with a lot of pride to build up such in a very short span. And there's not too much of an infrastructure cost really per se, because in villages you have your panchayat office, library. You can really change those, and while talking to all the panchayats there and sarpanch, so our socialists took a very, very important role in speaking to them, breaking that unconscious biasness that for women to come out and do it. Another important thing that we did was there were many like I said, women who were not even coming out of their houses to really get into skill development centers, enhance themselves. And so under the self-help group, we really helped them to give training around, assembling of LED bulbs as an entrepreneurship ideas, right? So these were some of the flagship programs that we successfully have run in the last 4 years. And definitely, as all of us here are saying, workforce is a challenge. Transition, and I mean, we have to have this transition. And I think Rajendra ji said, Sanjay ji said, Sir said, all of us believe very much that there has to be some integration. There's a lot of things everybody is doing. A 5-year company like us can do, a 20 years company like others sitting here can do. So it's just more about bringing things together and integrating it to make a more sustainable workforce. That's how I look at it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Manisha. Quickly, I have a follow-up question on the report also identifies that the participation from women is definitely low in this sector.
Yes.
And you're also running an initiative, Women in Blue Pine Energy. I think, is it a short form?
Yes,
Vibe?
yes. So we have a very interesting platform that we're running. Like I said, we are just 5 years old organization. But our philosophy was very clear that we just do not want to restrict it to participation. Women participation at corporates. We wanted to go beyond. We wanted to create an equitable space for them, whether they enter, learn, and then lead, and have a leadership progression. So the platform that is successfully running from the last 4 years is called WIBE. We spell it WIBE. That is Women in Blue Pine Energy. That's how we call that platform. So that's the vibe we create in the organization, and it's a very, I would say, very holistic, approach and development platform that we have for women. We do a lot of mentorship program. We give them leadership, career progression, peer networking. We send them for MDP programs at IIMs, and we have successfully gained, leadership roles for them in the organization. As in the report, I was seeing in the renewable sector, the diversity percentage is 11%, very, very low. So that is also one of the challenge that we also see while having in the corporate, while hiring women. And in our organization, at least we have tried to at least close it between 16%, and 20% of our women are in the leadership role as well, part of the leaders. But one of the challenge I see for women is, from the initial start, as Sir was saying, that people do not really get into STEM disciplines. So especially young women, right? And even if they get into engineering, it's more software engineering. They don't really get into mechanical, civil, or electrical engineering. So we really feel there is a lag, and we have to catch them young. And how that can happen is when certain awareness comes into picture, and awareness from the government, awareness from the scheme, and the academia are integrating the courses that we want, which is more like a plug and play, and you just recruit them, right? So that is where I see a lot of challenge, but we are definitely trying from our bit to maintain that equitability in the organization, to increase our diversity percentage, while having this flagship of vibe that we call. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Manisha. So a question I have for Mr. Sanjay ji. So there is a direct correlation between the bioenergy and the agriculture supply chain, and a direct correlation between agriculture supply chain and women in that space. So how do you see the role of women in a bioenergy kind of projects, and not only just collecting the biomass and all, but also entrepreneurship at the leadership level and coming out with their own initiatives? So like if you can share some insights on the bioenergy, basically women in bioenergy sector, and I'll request you to be in very quick time. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a correlation, for example, even MSW, right? If we are able, if the women of this country are able to segregate the waste at the kitchen, and then, force the, these, those who collect this garbage from homes to, say, put it in different bins, then probably we'll be able to create the major challenge in municipal solid waste based gas plants is segregation of waste. So that can happen definitely by the participation of women from household level. Now, with respect to women in the industry, let me be very honest with you. Yes, this industry is not that intensive in terms of workforce from the female gender. It is still male dominated. Yeah, maybe in the farms where women work, they supply this feedstock to the bioenergy producers. That is at least that is at the upstream sector, but that is not a major contributor to this sector. So yes, women, again the training and skill development of that category has to happen. Then only there will be more participation of such women in this sector. So a couple of things which I would not, is slightly different from your question. I had two things which I had told when Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan became the minister. I think it was 16 or 17. So two things I told him. One, create national ITIs and increase the duration of the course. Don't, these courses need to be increased rather than decreased what you are doing in, these small 3-month or 1-month courses. Second, the ecosystem which you have created through NSDC, make the industry responsible for placement, not the training provider. Like Sector Skill Council, earlier there was a complaint when I was in FICCI, I was dealing so many industries, कि भाई हमारे पास skilled manpower नहीं है. They are, people, workers are not trained as per our requirements. अब तो आप लोगों ने skill development, sector skill councils बनाई हैं. So now if the curriculum is as per your choice, assessment is being done by you, why don't you place them? So it has to be the other way around. Rather than making implementing agencies responsible to get placement for them, it should be industry which should be placing them. So these fundamental changes need to be done. Then only the system will work. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjay. And I see we are already little over time. I have one last question for you, Namrata. You did share some of the experience of training global South countries. They are coming over here and getting trained. But any specific case study where India is getting benefited from global South countries? Are there any such programs or any learnings, if anything is there in mind, you can share?
So, look, there are two parts to it. For us, actually, India is the leader in the global South that we're taking everywhere else, right? Because if you look at India versus all our other member countries in the global South, we are at least the shining star in the solar space because we're a solar alliance, right? So there's a lot that we can offer, and hence the Global Capability Center, being the Silicon Valley for solar, is being thought of being in India itself. So that itself is a opportunity for us to look at how we can take skilled workforce as well as industry outside from India to our other countries. That's one part of it. But just if you look at the way the sector is evolving and what we heard from the panel as well, right? At least in the utility scale solar industry is now also realizing the types of disruption which is happening because of technology, because of AI, digitization and others. But there's another large segment that we are seeing which is coming up around decentralized and distributed renewables, right? A lot of our other colleagues spoke about other technologies, but even for solar, or if I look at electric mobility and solar-based or renewable-based charging which will come up, or I don't know, we're talking about green hydrogen also, right? There's so many new technology spaces which will also have a lot of decentralized distributed footprint, right? We are seeing a lot happening in Africa where India is right now, particularly with regard to the solar pump program, the large-scale Kusum. We are seeing a big footprint in Africa, which is allowing us to learn how we can train more inclusive kind of, training for farmers and that kind of community, because that's going to be a very large group for training, which is very different from a utility scale kind of a project, right? So that is a new learning that we are trying to see how we can bring from other countries into India as well. So I'll stop there.
Thanks, Namrata. I'm sure that and things are quite clear, at least to me, that this discussion definitely showcased that India's clean energy transition is a people-led transition, and the success will only come not only with investment in technology and infrastructure, but also in people, in skill, in workforce, and we definitely need to have inclusivity into it. So with that, I would like to close this panel. I'll again thank all the panelists over here. Thanks to CEW team and MNRE and also my colleagues at NRDC. Thanks a lot.
I'd like to request all the speakers to please be on the stage, please. We'd like to felicitate you. Siddharth, if you can please do, and someone please hand over the pods. मिस्टर संजय गंजूज आगे आ जाइए थोड़ा सा, फोटो भी अच्छे से आएगी. like to invite Ms. Namrata Mukherjee. Mr. Sujoy Ghosh. Mr. Rajendra Mehta. And Ms. Manisha Nair, please. Yeah, photo, please. Yeah, everyone can come on the front. Thank you, Siddharth, and thank you all the esteemed speakers for your contribution to this very important conversation. Now we'll break for an interesting segment of the discussion, which is we have organized 3 parallel breakout sessions. Let me put up the slides first, and then I can explain you the details about the session. We'll now break into 3 parallel groups, and to have 3 very specific and focused discussions on these 3 topics.